Please help me welcome Doug Taylor from StackVelocity.
Thanks, Cole. It is fantastic to be here in this great city. When I woke up this morning and looked outside and saw the beautiful sunshine coming through, I was very, very excited. It felt like a great start for today and the first day of the event. I've had the pleasure of actually being a part of this hyperscale initiative for a long time, for about 10 years. And I remember Aaron was kind of reflecting on his experiences when OCP first was coming out. But I remember some of those first conversations that I had with customers, back in the beginning of these days. And it was just incredulous to me. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't imagine this customer was saying to me, Doug, yeah, it's great that you've got those redundant power supplies, but I don't want that. It's great that you've got this mirrored memory thing, but I don't want that. This hot plug PCI thing that you're talking about, I don't need that. I need you to think differently about how we're going to consume your technology and understand my business better. And it's that transformation that's occurred over the last few years about how we think differently about technology. And that's what gets me excited about being here and then also participating next week at OpenStack and thinking about how we work together in those two communities to kind of further the advances in true open source environments. So going to talk a little bit about StackVelocity, which is one of the businesses within Jabil that is focused on true systems integration for large-scale data center deployments. It is a hardware agnostic and, frankly, software agnostic entity that takes advantage of Jabil's significant global scale to deliver rack integration in a very globally consistent manner. It doesn't matter which region of the world it is or which region you happen to be deploying or in multiple regions. So we've got this capability around scale. We've got an amazing supply chain capability, and we leverage that along with our global factory capability to bring those solutions to market. But that's only part of the conversation. As we engage with customers, one of their greatest challenges is, okay, I've got this rack of kit, now what do I do? So we focus a significant amount of our effort around the validation and certification of the complete stack such that it can be consumed readily in your data centers. So taking that OpenStack environment, testing that and developing that on the ecosystem or the hardware infrastructure that's appropriate for your environment, and then releasing that as a reference architecture that you can now go and replicate many times over. So that's solution validation. Of course, in your environment, that's not where your business ends. That's not where your job ends. So we extend our capabilities into helping you maintain that through the life of that ecosystem from a warranty level support for the entire solution stack that we've deployed. Talk just a little bit about Jabil to give you a sense of scale. StackVelocity is a fairly new entity in the market, but Jabil's been around for many, many years with 60 different plants in over 30 different countries, about $18 billion in revenue. As Jabil, we service most of the Tier 1 manufacturers and provide factory and manufacturing capabilities for them in every region of the world. And as StackVelocity, we have that scale and that capability that we now leverage through true factory-level integration and global consistency. So we can have a supply chain that might begin in the West Coast of the United States and be able to deploy that in the central United States, in South America, in Tiszaújváros, Hungary. We can do that in Wuxi, China, or in Singapore. So it's that breadth that is incredible capability that we bring through StackVelocity to the market as a systems integrator. StackVelocity is actually an OCP solutions provider. It's a great way that we can help participate and frankly help accelerate the adoption of these hyperscale ideals into the broader market. That is an important part of why we are all here today and how we can help each other be successful. We're also intent on engaging with and helping to develop the ecosystem of partners, products, and of course, actually customers in that environment to help kind of broaden this. As Cole mentioned, you have to have all three pieces of that. You have to be able to contribute, but you have to make it all the way through to the consumption side. Otherwise, we're just here all talking to each other in a great little club and not doing a whole lot of real work in the industry. So it is important that we look at ways that we can truly consume the technologies that we're talking about. From a contribution perspective, StackVelocity, we'll look at it in the core areas where we really see value around getting the technology into your hands. And that, of course, talks about the rack integration, what are the things that we can do from that perspective. But it also goes all the way through to potentially how we deploy OpenStack in that environment as a reference architecture. We can't do this alone, and that's one of the things we've learned, is that as we go into these markets, we have to partner with companies that are very related and very beneficial to this. And I'm very pleased to announce here in Paris our relationship with Splitted Desktops. So Splitted Desktops, Jean-Marie and company, heavily involved in getting this initiative kicked off here in Paris. And we're very excited to leverage their capabilities as a design house and their relationships and familiarity with the European market. And so we'll be looking forward to the opportunity to actually develop products and solutions that adhere to and apply to the environment here. It's not the same. This isn't the same kind of dynamics that we have in the US, and they're not the same kind of dynamics that we have in Asia. So we have to understand that market and deliver the right levels of densities and the right level of footprint for what is appropriate in this particular community. We also have partnerships with Mirantis. Mirantis is a great partnership for us, especially with our relationship in the OpenStack community. We leverage heavily some of their technologies from their fuel-based, and we go to market together and help them deploy their solutions much more rapidly in the market. Because we deliver a validated solution based upon their technology. We also have another new relationship in Saudi Arabia with Amarco. Amarco helps us in that region deploying more big data-oriented and security-oriented infrastructures. So very exciting time for us, very exciting relationships. Those, honestly are not the only relationships that we have. We have a lot of technology partnerships that are tremendously important as a part of this. We have to have those deep understandings of the individual elements in that, and we leverage our strengths of integrating those and testing and validating those solutions as we move forward. When we think about technology, right, one of the things that comes from my heritage is was at a Tier 1 manufacturer for almost 2 decades. And one of the things that you begin to understand is that as a Tier 1, you make different decisions about what you bring to market based upon demand. If demand is not at a certain point for something, then you can't justify bringing that new product out. So for us in the market, we think about that differently now through OCP. We have the opportunity to influence what actually is going to come to market in the future by listening to and talking to our customers today. And so in doing so, we've actually come across a couple of areas where we are looking to help to innovate within the community. The first is actually a storage-oriented design that is really centered around the fundamental building block of the triple or the 3-wide enclosure that's used for compute today. So with this technology, we're able to deploy 3 15-drive sleds into that same 2 OU space. But the challenge in the past is how do you do that in a way that allows for hot pluggability so that I can still service one of those drives without having to take all 15 drives out of service. So we believe we've solved that problem. We're still working on that. It's not in prototype yet, so it's in concept phase. So we're still working through that and trying to understand all of the nuances and challenges necessary for that. So imagine, if you could, a scenario where you've got a triple wide shelf. In the middle might be a compute, and on either side you have a storage enclosure with 15 drives each, so you get your 30 drives for that. You could also imagine potentially a scenario where you have compute on either side and one storage enclosure in the middle, and it's sharing that storage enclosure between those two computes. So just a couple of different ways that we can potentially deploy this. That obviously, as you think about that from a large form factor drive scenario, it's very quick and very easy to think about, okay, how do I now adapt that to a small form factor scenario? And that's an important part of this as we look at SSDs and different types of performance characteristics away from just simply a cold storage environment or a lightly warm storage environment. So as we migrate into some of these other areas, the small form factor will play a part of that. How that manifests itself is something I think that is still to be determined in terms of the number of drives that are appropriate, for instance, in that particular space. We are looking also, as many of you know, there are some of the new technologies like the kinetic drive from Seagate, where you have IP-based storage. We're looking at ways that you can take advantage of that in these same types of form factors. So this is one area we're always looking for additional conversations, additional folks to provide input into these. You know, we talk about the market and we talk about the migration and the adoption of open compute into your data centers. And one of the greatest challenges that everybody has is I have this legacy environment that is based around a 19-inch standard. Are you asking me now to go in and rip out that environment? And how am I going to manage that decision about now I've deployed a rack into my environment that only works for OCP? What if, hey, what if I decide in the future I don't like OCP anymore, right? How do I manage through that? So we've been working with one of our customers, Fidelity, talking about how we take the open bridge rack concept and make that more readily available within the market. And the open bridge rack has a fundamental capability that allows it to convert between a standard 19-inch rack and a 21-inch wide compatible open compute rack. So now I put one rack in place as potentially a 19-inch rack that you use in your environment, and then as time goes by and you need to convert that to an OCP rack because you're furthering your OCP deployments, which would be a good thing, then it's a simple conversion that can occur by your staff, and it is simple. It is simply just a reorienting the rails, the vertical rails, has no welding, nobody has to come out and do it for you, a very simple migration that can occur within your data center. And then obviously it can go the other way as well. You can take an OCP rack, if you decide that you're going to move that equipment to a new location, you can then convert that rack back to a 19-inch rack. Again, a very simple environment, but one rack comes with both capabilities. The version we're looking at gives us potentially the ability to ship flat. Shipping is a very expensive part of delivering a rack to you. Being able to ship that in a flat pack, if you think of an IKEA box where everything comes and it's a much thinner box, much easier to ship. That'd be a similar concept for this. It's then assembled at the manufacturing site, frankly, where we'd be integrating the rack. Enough about that. You know, Aaron talked, and I loved this slide. I was backstage when Aaron was presenting and saw the open compute and OpenStack little buddies, Star Wars buddies, walking away in the distance. It was a beautiful sight. But as we think about OpenStack and open compute, there really has never been a greater opportunity for us as two communities to work together and truly affect the future of technology and computing in our industry. these two open source ideals, and as Aaron talked about, how do we take advantage of the innovations that we can potentially drive in hardware by thinking about it in a very tightly coupled software context. How can I change the other way around? How can I really change the advances in open source cloud by thinking about how I can take advantage of and write that into these new things that are occurring within the hardware space. So it is critically important that we continue that. It's one of the efforts that we're focused on within StackVelocity, and one of the most recent efforts we did was testing and validation around open compute with OpenStack. We were focused in this particular first phase around the Havana release. And in subsequent phases, we'll work on the next releases and further ones. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we've got the full stack, the full capability from an open compute perspective that we've tested. It's important for us to work out all of the real simple challenges around drivers and firmware and other versions along those sides first. And then begin to focus on, as those new releases coming out, it makes it a lot easier for us to test those together. There's definitely lessons learned, and if for those of you that are new to open compute, you might have been focused around OpenStack in the past, or you might be new to both OpenStack and open compute. There are definitely some things that you need to think about. First of all, you really need to be focused around some type of a deployment tool that is used for deploying this environment. We use Fuel in our deployments today. Relative to our OpenStack efforts. And so there's some notes there around our approach there, and our reference paper will have even further details. But you also then have to think about, how am I going to manage this environment? And so from a management perspective, if you're not deploying IPMI or you're not taking advantage of it, that is a critical aspect for you to be thinking about and deploying in your environment today. So that's kind of one of the most important things as you're kind of going down this path, especially from a hyperscale perspective. All of the remote management elements, DHCP, IPMI, PXE, remote control, or remote management, those are all very, very critical pieces. One of the things that you'll discover is that because these systems are designed for hyperscale, there is no expectation that you will ever sit in front of the box and work on it. And so as you're doing your initial testing and your initial scaling, stick a video card in the system so that you can actually look at it and watch and see why it is that it's not doing anything. And it's because it's sitting there waiting for you to input something, or there is an incompatibility in the environment. As I mentioned, we'll have a white paper paired up with the particular testing that we've done thus far. We have additional releases coming out that we're going to be doing testing on, and we'll drive that much further. So it's a core part of what we do. It's an ongoing portion of our value that we're delivering to our customers. As I talk about that, right, there's effectively a supply chain that is associated with the cloud. And it's, how do I begin with a whole pile of boxes and end up with a production cloud in my data center up and running? And the stuff that's in between is the hard stuff, and that's what we help you with. We actually manage all the logistics. We manage ensuring that you have the products that are validated and actually all work together and satisfy the requirements, your requirements, in that environment, and help deliver that to you. And deliver that in a way that can be maintained and supported through its life. And we're very flexible in how we do that through that whole supply chain. So I just leave you with a couple of key points, right? We talk about StackVelocity, and if you were to ask me what is the one thing I would like for you to think of StackVelocity as, and it's real simple, right? We're a systems integrator focused on large-scale data center deployments. And that's what it's all about. We can handle the massive complexity. We can handle the massive deployments that you have. We do that today with our Tier 1 manufacturers. We extend that for you, extend that in the hyperscale space as well. We are very, very engaged in OCP. We definitely see that as a critical aspect of the future. We actually see that as a way to drive innovation even into what some people might think of hearsay, into the tier 1 OEMs, right? Because that is how we can help drive that pace of innovation and drive that by influencing the community through, or influencing those partners through the OCP community. Clear synergy between OpenStack and Open Compute, and it, you know, others have referred to it as peanut butter and jelly. There's been a lot of different ways to think about how they go together. They are, you know, two guys walking hand in hand together, and little Legos, all of those things. The last one I'll leave you with, and it kind of goes back to the OpenStack piece, make certain that you continue to communicate and drive your successes back into the community. It is just super important that the testing, the work that you do in your data centers, that you take that knowledge and that experience and those lessons learned and you feed that back into the community to help the community grow and make better product, make OCP better, make OpenStack better. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your time. I'm delighted to be here in Paris. This is an awesome venue. Thank you to the city and the country. And obviously, thank you to all of you helping us to launch Open Compute EMEA. Thank you.